There we go. Hello? Hey.
Hey,
Hello.
Uh,
You sound very far, Paul.
okay.
Well,
Jeez.
now you sound.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you. Now you know.
Weird.
I can see you and hear you. Did you guys get the message?
Okay, try it now.
Question?
Hey there, can y'all hear me?
Oh, I know what.
Yeah. Do you guys
Well-
get the message saying recording in progress?
Yeah, I did.
yeah. We could hear you, Doug.
Oh, okay, great. I'm in
Hey,
my
Doug.
car right now. I'm just making my way back to the studio, and then I'll jump on a proper laptop when I get there, just a few minutes.
Okay.
No worries.
Maybe shall we wait 5 minutes to see who else shows
Sure.
up? Is that okay?
Yeah, we can catch up.
Right.
Are
And
things
then it's Christopher joining as well.
Yeah, expect him to join. I sent him the Zoom link.
Yeah, he's
My
right.
Zoom.
He's right here.
Okay, because my
Yeah.
Zoom wanted to update, and then it couldn't install the installation, so I had to the typical stuff. Oh, and I'm getting echo.
Uh-oh.
Hello? Maybe it's gone.
Hello?
I hear you fine.
It's gone. Yeah.
Good.
Um,
Hey,
Hmm.
Christopher, can you hear us?
I can hear you all fine. How we doing?
We can't see you though, but we can hear you fine.
Great.
Oh, there you are.
See, my apartment's a bit of a mess. Can I?
Oh, you guys working from home today?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mondays generally we do. And then I'm in Tuesday, Thursday. I think Christopher's kind of in when he needs to be, which is more than that probably.
2 or 3 times a week.
Okay. I was looking. I know my app has a thing where I can make sure you're hearing what I'm hearing on my laptop. I do not see it.
All of a sudden, Paul, we can hear some noise, but no longer your voice. Oh, it's the water recording that I'm hearing. Yeah, but not your voice.
How about now? Any better?
Now I can hear you, but not the water recording.
I don't know where the water recording it come from. I have no idea.
Maybe I'm just pretending it's the water recording. I don't know, but
Yeah,
it was
something else.
it was noisy.
Yeah.
If whatever it was.
Can you hear? Hold on. Just so we don't.
Yes, and he wouldn't say.
Can you hear that voice?
Yeah.
Say no either. He could never learn to make a choice.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Hopefully, it's coming from directly in.
So you need to share your
Sounds like it.
screen, guys. You
Yeah, I
probably-
will. I'll share my screen.
You can
Let's see
do
if
it.
I can.
I don't need to give you any permission, right? You can just do it.
Let's see. No, it says disabled. Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
So how do I do that? Let's see.
Let's see.
I barely use them.
I know we use Teams. and I should know Zoom pretty well, but not the
Let me Google it. How do you enable that?
or maybe settings. I bet it's in settings.
No, I have to do it for you because I'm the.
Yeah.
So, okay, now you should be able to.
Okay, let's see. Yep, looks
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, yeah. And you too, Christopher, if you have to, you should be good to go.
Yeah, it looks like I
So-
should be able to.
I mean,
Stefan, what's that map in the behind you?
it's not a map, it's a picture of the state park. This
Oh,
one?
the state park. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an old picture that was taken from an helicopter
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
before it was actually the state park. It was right during not a cornfield project. Yeah, it's a cool photo. I'm at the moon. You know, you've been here, right? I
Paul, we
can't,
can no longer
Um,
hear your voice.
and we hear that weird noise again.
Yeah.
How about now?
Yeah,
How about now?
yeah. Keep
So
it like
I
that.
hear, and it's weird because I hear this little tone, and I'm not sure if I think it might be from Teams, and then it cuts me off. So if it happens again, just let me know. I just switch between
Okay.
on Zoom for some reason. Anyway, well, should we
Shall we
get
start?
started?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
2:06, so I'm
Yeah,
recording.
yeah. I was hoping maybe Alan would join, but you guys are the keys. So let me share. I just put together, sorry, I hate when that happens. I put together a few slides actually, just to kind of go through, which is frankly what I should have done when you visited. So just to go through kind of a few of some of the background of what we're looking at today. Can you see? No, yeah.
Yes,
You see my screen? Okay.
yes.
So most of you saw when we did the measurement, this setup that we used is basically the same setup that we would use when we're measuring our concert hall. Did you lose me?
No,
For a
we
second?
can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that sound again, which I don't know where it's coming
Yeah, I think we
from.
lost you for a second, but you're back.
It's so strange. Um, so so the point I wanted to show this to you is that we kind of, when we do the virtual model, we're kind of doing the same thing as we would do in a real model. We use the speaker. Generally, we do it on the stage, on a stage of a concert venue or theater, and then put the microphone in different places and measure basically what people would hear from different locations. And so we create this impulse response. It's generally like a click, like a clap, but uh, uh, often when we do the impulse response, we'll use like a balloon, or sometimes I used to use a gun. But these days we don't use an impulse response. We do the sweep that you all heard when I think Ian, you didn't get to hear when we were doing measurements, right?
Yeah, I was there. We lost you.
I think we can hear you now, Paul.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
One of my devices is acting up, and I'm going to try to turn it off, and I'm not sure if I can. Actually. Weird. All right. Okay, let's see. Oh well. It'll probably happen again. So what happens with this? We use a sweep, and it synthesizes this impulse. Is what happens because a sweep guarantees that we get all the frequencies that we need for this to then process the sweep into an impulse response. It's there's math and Fourier analysis involved in that, but ultimately this is what we're looking for: is setting off a pulse and then listening to all the reflections, and these reflections are, off the wall. They're generally, we can tell by the timing between those reflections generally where things are, based on the flight of sound, about 1,000 feet per second. So then we when we model it, when we do a computer model, the computer does that test for us, virtually. And the trick of listening to that impulse response is that we have to use music without a signature, without an acoustic signature, anechoic recording. And this is like in an anechoic chamber. And I think you've heard that before, but I just wanted to kind of reiterate it. Hey, Doug, you're here. So when we looked at the impulse and the model and measured, here we got a pretty similar. We have a lot of measurements from a lot of different, where we put the speaker in a lot of different locations. Unlike a concert hall, we were lowering and raising the speaker into different places, and then lowering and raising the mic into different places. So this is really just one measurement, and you can see sort of the shape of this is kind of what we're looking at, and they're fairly similar. You can see it's fairly chaotic in all those reflections and that sort of thing. So that the blue, which is sort of behind here, behind here is the modeled, and then the red is the measured. They sound different, but one of the, maybe I've said this, I think I said this to you maybe on the site, but the one of my favorite quotes is that all models are wrong, but some are useful, and hopefully we'll see the usefulness here. Of course, we did this photogrammetry and the modeling based on your drone footage, Stefano, and then
We lost your voice again.
let's see.
Okay, now we can hear
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
It's my phone is trying to capture my microphone. So I finally turned it off. Hopefully it won't happen again. So you've seen this image, but this is the point cloud that we derived from the video, flying the video around. From this, we can actually get to something like this, and this was the 10-foot point cloud. And then Christopher took those point cloud 3D drawings, put them into Rhino, and basically created a usable drawing, because the point clouds are really way too complex to model. So he took it and simplified the drawing and was able to create. I thought I had one more. I do have one more later on. Create the models that we use for the acoustic testing. So you saw this this amazing process that we've done. This is definitely unprecedented to to lower these things in such a space. Here's the deeper model. It's very similar, but you can see the steel in there and everything. This is the simplified version. Christopher, jump in if you have any color to add to this. So what I wanted to do then is the idea of this whole thing is to take these impulse responses and to be able to reuse them. And there's two ways we can reuse these impulse responses. One is to I'll try not to move my hands because the video compression algorithm doesn't like it. The two generally the two ways you can do it is use a spatial impulse response, which actually captures, because of the mic we use, it captures how the reflections are coming in space. So they're coming in from the left or the right or the above or the bottom. That's the impulse response we use in the sound lab because we can reproduce it in 3 dimensions. But the reason I wanted to get together today was to show you the simple way that you can use this in a DAW, because we have 2 kinds of synthesized impulse responses or model impulse responses. One is the simple kind of 2D version that you'd use in a DAW, and one is the spatial version. In certain cases, you can use a spatial version in a DAW if you have a spatial audio system, and that's something we can talk about later. But let me go to Logic. Do you use Logic, Ian and Doug? I can't remember.
I think Ian does. I tend to use Pro Tools.
Okay.
I use Ableton and Reason.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
not Reason, Reaper.
Reaper. Well, okay. I'll show you how to do it in Reaper. I have. I wanted to show it in a couple of different formats. So what you may or may not have known is that there are these kinds of reverbs called convolution reverbs, and they're able to take that impulse response and basically create a reverb out of it, like the ones you would buy. And so what you do in this case, there's a reverb, a built-in reverb into Logic called Space Designer, and you can insert that. And as you can see, there's an impulse response. That impulse response is for this large and bright room. What we can do now with the data that we've created is to in some way take the impulse response files that we got, both the measured and the modeled, and use them in that reverb. Let me see. Okay, I thought it was going to work. It definitely doesn't like. Okay, I'm getting close. Must be because I'm on Zoom. There's like a really delay because I was able to do this pretty easily before. It's really just it's trying to access the folders. Let me see if I can cancel it because I've already got them in here. Cancel. Let's see. Oh, that's still working. Well, you're probably familiar with this phenomenon.
The spinning wheel of doom.
It's so cheerful. It's so cheerful and yet so debilitating. Let's see. Can I just get out of it here? Oh, it could be also that it doesn't like PowerPoint. No, it's Logic. Okay.
Try to force quit Logic, and then at this point.
Yeah, that's where I was going actually. Let's see. Not responding. Okay, let's try it again. Oops, damn it. While we're waiting for that, there was a similar.
We lost you again, Paul.
Okay, are we back?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So it looks like this is recovered. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to open that reverb. I'm going to try it again and see if it works. Okay, so I have some of the impulse responses here. One thing I didn't say is these impulse responses are effectively generally wave files, and so they really just have that trigger and then that tail, and these convolution reverbs can use that to create a reverb. So I can grab one of these, and we're going to give you all these files. So I'll take one, and you see it loaded it in. And my guess is that you'll have to, well, if you use this in a piece like that you're recording, you'll want to tweak it. Or if you use it live, you'll probably want to tweak it. So you can still change in most of these reverbs, all the parameters. And the wet dry is, I think, one of the key ones here that you may want to change. So this is a couple of speech things and then a music thing. And this is just set it up already with in this case, the measured impulse response from a program called Ezra. That's basically what we were out there doing. And if I
There once was a
okay, I've got it off.
So young rat named Arthur,
Can you
who
hear
would
that?
never take the trouble to make up his mind.
Okay, so that's effectively like an anechoic voice.
Who would never take the.
And if I turn on the reverb now.
There once was a young rat named Arthur, who would never take the trouble to make up his mind. Whenever his friends asked him if he would like to go out with them, he would only answer, "I don't know."
So that's really interesting because that's actually from the measured model that the whole setup that Christopher and I set up when we were out there. So
Do you know
now
that was the Paul?
Oh, so these are the sort of the deepest speaker position and the highest microphone position. They're both the same.
I see.
So kind of the reason I'm using these is because they have the most kind of dramatic effect.
Yeah.
So using the modeled reverb, it's pretty similar. Let's see, that's the measured still. Here we go. The model reverb is a lot cleaner. You'll find, the measured one has noise and a lot of little details that you would never kind of get in a model unless you let it run for months to convolve all those little details. So it's interesting and it's usable. I think it might be more usable just because it's cleaner. Let me play it.
There once was a young rat named Arthur, who would never take the trouble to make up his mind. Whenever his friends asked him if he would like to go out with them, he would only answer, "I don't know."
Now, that is with a dry kind of pushed. If I bring the dry down to sort of parity, then it sounds like this. And this is probably more.
There once was a young rat named Arthur, who would never take the trouble to make up his mind. Whenever his friends asked him if he would like to go out with them, he would only.
So if I bring that direct back up, probably there, then now I can.
The answer, "I don't know." He wouldn't say yes, and he wouldn't say no either. He could never learn to make a choice. His Aunt Ellen
Here's the
said to
model.
him, "No one will ever care for you if you carry on like this. You have no..."
So I know you can't hear that well and the systems that we're using right now, but they're similar. They're not identical. The model tends to have a little more low frequency and a little less high frequency, and then vice versa. I think the main component that I hear in the modeled reverb is a lot more high frequency because it's, you know, it has no actual constraints of attenuation because of diffusion that happens in the model. So that is logic, and what you'll find, and to be honest, the best reverb that does this is probably an alto reverb. I don't know if you have that at Metabolic or not. We don't have a copy here because it's about $2,000 or something like that. It's pretty expensive, but it is a really good convolving reverb.
Did you say alto as in alto soprano?
Alta verb, yeah. Alta as in like a high.
Alta verb.
Alta.
And that's a reverb. Alta verb is a plugin, or is that a
It's a plugin.
Huh?
Yeah, it's a plugin, correct. But you know, I mean, the other thing, and Christopher, you may know, I don't know the capability of Alta with spatial capability, if it has spatial capability. But to be honest, there is some spatial capability here in Logic. If you were to turn an output into a surround sound output, and this is just a standard 5.1, but you can do other configurations if you want to, if you have the speaker systems for it. And then in that case, when you, let me undo this one. When you add that reverb, you'd add the space designer that takes the monitor to 5.1, and then you can load in the spatial IR, and to what perfection, you know, that works. I can't speak to it because we haven't done a lot of samples on it, but you do have in the model version, we have all those models that we have the hybrid and the spatial, and so we can grab the spatial. And I was listening to it a little bit on headphones, the binaural listening, and you can hear that you can place a source, you know, anywhere, and you still get a reverberant field. It's not, the reverberation doesn't follow the source as it would if it wasn't a spatial reverb, if that makes sense. But the other thing that you can do actually with a spatial reverb, the one that kind of picks up all the where the reflections are coming in 3D, is that you can create a sound lab like what we have with potentially an arbitrary set of speakers. So if you just had, you know, 6 speakers and they were in different places and not, you know, not a perfect sphere, you can, with something like Max MSP and SPAT, you can actually say, okay, these speakers are here, here, and here, and put in a spatial reverb and play back and move objects around. So there's this spatial thing that can be done. It just takes a bit more work for sure. Reaper, like I said, Reaper also has like a native convolving reverb. It's called Reverb here, and if you add it and open it, you can see there's some stuff that you probably did, you know, sort of wondered about if you used this before, or maybe you've used. Ian, have you used impulse responses before? Okay, Yeah, I mean it's surprisingly easy. You add a file in this case, and then I can add one of these impulse responses. Let's say this modeled one, um, and you can see it loads that in. In this case, it appears to be. Let me add a different one. Okay, so they load in different. I'm going to use this one. They give you a visualization of it, um, and then you have the same wet dry kind of mix, obviously, and that sort of thing. And you can experiment with all of these parameters, but once that's in, and the reverb is on, which one did I use? Track one. I think I have some music here. You can see the difference without and with. Oh, I see my CPU see the choke here. But if I stop and start it again, you can see how that all works. I think I don't know if this for some reason this is offline. I must have lost that sample. But anyway, are there any questions? I'm sure there probably are.
I've got some questions.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, just so I understand kind of the holistic aspect of what we're doing right now. So basically, we're taking a WAV file that you've given us at ARUP, and when we open up a convolution plugin Reverb, we're going to actually import a WAV file that you've given us, and then that convolution reverb then basically does the math to reproduce the same reverb in the plugin. Am I understanding that?
It doesn't use the reverb in the plugin. What it does is it just extracts the reverb from that recording and creates a new reverb from it.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. But we really are just getting an audio file ultimately.
It is, well, I mean, there are other files here that are from the sort of unique measurement platform, but yes, the usable impulse response is generally in an audio file.
Great.
And then you can look at it. In fact, let's see, for example, I've been using Isotope because the RX7 because the Creative Cloud one is so damn expensive these days. But anyway, you can see this is an impulse response. This is the one in the that we measured. One of the things that you see here's, if I zoom out. So let me go back to your question, Doug. So what these convolution reverbs do is they effectively run the sound through a through this file in a way that sort of repeats, like, so for example, whatever audio that you start with, it's going to play the original file back at this time. Okay, and then it's going to play various repetitions of that file over and over again at different amplitudes and at different frequency responses. If you look at this, this is Isotope's frequency analyzer. So each one of those elements has a different frequency response. Each one of those sort of reflections, if you will. So that's kind of it kind of runs it through this audio file in a weird way. It would be interesting. I've never done it. You can just like throw any audio file in there and some weird shit will happen.
Sure. Cool. And then the other question I had, if we think we answered that one, It is
Edge.
is this something that, like, I was just looking up right now because we didn't mention Pro Tools, so I was Googling, convolution reverb for Pro Tools, and I came up with something called Space. It's an Avid software. Now, is that something that could also be used with one of these audio files? Is this something that works in any convolution reverb, or is it? Or okay,
the file is a generic impulse response file. It's sort of a standard.
Mm-hmm.
So any convolution reverb should be able to ingest these audio files and create a reverb out of them.
Cool. Okay. That's
and there's a lot. Waves has some. There's a lot out there. Again, the one that we see, in professional use a lot is that Altiverb. Did you see that when you searched?
No, I wrote that down. I was really actually just really just focused on Pro Tools because a lot of
Pro Tools. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a Pro Tools demo for you.
Oh, yeah, y'all good. But I know me, Dave, and Aaron, we're all very heavy on the Pro Tools. So I'm just trying to find something that works with Pro Tools as well. And then Alta, do you know off chance if that's something? I'm sure it probably works in Pro Tools, right? I mean, they probably just gave me the Avid thing because that's Avid. So
exactly. I don't know what format they deliver this in, but
yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
It's a VST3 or something like that.
Okay.
Cool.
I don't think we necessarily need Altiverb though. Like
no, not at all. I only reason I mention it is because it's got a really great reputation. It's a very professional. I think to some extent it's taken over where Lexicon used to be. And the Lexicon reverbs will not do convolution, so they're nice, but
awesome. Yeah, I think that was, at least for so far, those are my two big questions I had.
Sure. Yeah.
And Alta was also your recommendation, just because, did I hear right that it might just process like in the most ideal manner through Alta? We can use any convolution reverb, but maybe you would recommend, let's say, Alta if money were no object or whatnot,
Yeah, I think so, and not just because the convolution, but all of the other presets and that sort of thing. It seems to be the most used professional version, but that's why I mention it exactly.
Cool.
What else? Now, have you ever delved into Max at all? Max MSP?
I want to, and I have not. No, I'm familiar with the software, but I keep meaning to download it and take a class. Maybe if you know where somebody's doing a Max MSP course or
that's a good question.
Like that, we'd love to get a link or anything on.
Yeah, I think it would be a really interesting tool for Lauren really wants to sort of make this physical and spatialize it. And of course, what I showed you today is more of a production tool, right, than a sort of an immersive spatial tool. But the impulse responses that we're delivering to you can be used, and that's what we used in the Sound Lab. Now, there's something, Christopher, you may know more. I was looking, I don't know why I stumbled on it, but now in Ableton, there's a bunch of SPAT plugins. And SPAT is a tool that we use a version of in Max MSP, and of course Ableton has Max built in. And SPAT is this. You probably all know URCAM in Paris. SPAT was developed by URCAM as a spatial ambisonic and a VBAP, which is sort of a spatial panning spatial tool. And what was I going to say? And I don't know to what extent they've implemented it, but it sure is damn cheap. I was really surprised. It was like less than $100 to get the SPAT package for Ableton. And I think it's really limited as far as how many speakers you can use. Do you know anything about it, Christopher?
I don't know anything about it. That's exciting though, because as Paul said, SPAT is basically the suite of kind of software plugins, I guess, that we use in collaboration with Max to spatialize pretty much anything in the Sound Lab. It's a really powerful tool set. So I think with Ableton, that could be a really cool implementation, depending on the features.
Oh, I guess it's not less than $100, but it's nearly that. And then the various SPAT plugins, as I gathered from a quick review of it, is that, and whether this does convolution reverbs, it sort of looks like it does. I can't speak to it, but there's the multiverb MC. And then the speaker editor, I would assume, allows you to say my speakers are here or there, and then create this spatial plugin to move things about. Generally, I don't know if you know, Max and all these tools, including Atmos, they basically have two kinds of spatial elements. One is the bed. Could be the ambient noise, or it could be kind of reverberation, or something that is generally in every speaker in some way or another. And then you've got these objects, and the objects can move around and are panned from speaker to speaker in different ways, depending on which algorithm you use. And again, that's exactly how Atmos does it. Atmos allows you to have, I don't know, 100 and some, I can't remember, objects. And so you could have that helicopter fly over, and you can have somebody run across the stage and all of that, but then have still the street scene in all those speakers. Or music is a common thing to have, spread around.
Very cool.
Yeah. So what, let's see. What else can we tell you? I'll stop sharing. I think, so I don't know, maybe I will continue to share, because I want to share with you something that is in the background of what we did, and part of, I think, what the conversation was when we were in the Sound Lab. And that is going back to my PowerPoint slides. And Doug, I think you might have seen some of this too, or maybe all of you have. But this conversation started with Lauren and you all, actually, in our brainstorm sessions, and a couple of the archiving the well acoustics is really what this project was all about, doing the photogrammetry, doing Sound Lab demo and all that. But then there were four, or at least four other sort of ideas that we talked about, the shaping of the well, which came up, and it really wasn't part of this project, to be honest. And then the building a shell to bring the water sounds out. Now this all changes somewhat. If there's no water sound down here, then all this would maybe take a different approach. Some kind of, this is something you've seen before in different art installations, and then some talk about maybe putting sensors down there, and this could still be possible. It would have been nice to kind of gather something on the pipe, but I think up and down the well, it still could be interesting, depending on how the water is going to move. And I think that's, you all know that if the water does eventually get into the park, there's a lot of other opportunities, not just to the well, as far as oralizing that water. And Doug, you've been doing a lot of work in that regard. So that's the larger context. The reason I mention it is because there's more to do, if we all want to.
I know Lauren's really, or at least was, interested in this idea of, if the sound can move through the water, almost as if the sound is just like, imagine the sound just being another type of audio cable, or another sort of long acoustic tube, or something like this, and then have the sound travel from the well and then, appear in the state park, basically, and so
Yep.
I'm not sure what form that looks like exactly. We're kind of in just deep conceptual territory here, but I know that for a long time, that was a big, to try and just make this physical connection, actually send sound along with the water. And I know you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Somehow the water has to do something. I'm kind of curious as to if have you done this, Doug? Just drop a piston phone down there and see what's down there. Like, what sound is down there in that static water? Is there sound? Like, is there any water movement down there?
I mean, when you drop a rock or something like that, right now there's definitely sound because there's pumps. They're constantly removing the water. I still believe that's the case, right, y'all? That the pumps are still actively pulling water out, so it just doesn't completely fill up. Of course, that won't be in the final project. I believe, they'll have a system that's balanced that won't require. Actually, that's an assumption. I don't really know that. But I'm assuming
it is an important aspect of whatever you do next, because it's likely that that the water has to be pumped out somehow. And the thing that is important, and that acousticians, not myself, but like, Christopher and Shane and others in our group could help to isolate the sounds of the pumps so they're not dominant in the soundscape of that water flowing. It's hard work, to be honest.
Sure. I believe what's happening now is the pump are for the groundwater that it flows constantly. But once the well is in place, there won't be any more groundwater in the structure, so the water will be, not moving, because it will be sealed within the. Does that make sense?
Right.
Groundwater that percolates into the area.
Yeah. So everything we're even listening to right now isn't the actual LA River water. It's just the creeping groundwater coming in from all directions.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. So there is. I'm curious as to whether there is any movement there. There must be some water movement in the pipe from the river, unless it's shut off for some reason. Maybe.
I think it's capped right now. Yeah, I don't think we're actually. Yeah, they won't be. But right now, I think it is. I did stick an underwater microphone, and now I'm just trying to remember why and what exactly. But I dropped the underwater mic, 40 feet down, so I remember doing it. I can't think of any recordings I have, so I will, even if there is a generator going, just go ahead and do another little experiment and just hear it's just a $250 aquaphone, but if that would give us a sense of what's happening,
I don't think you'll get anything useful with the pumps on. It's really just gonna dominate the whole sound field. Yeah. But if you maybe you want to do an A and B, you do it with and then turn them off and listen to the difference. But
right. And I think we can do that as long as we give them a heads up.
Yeah.
I think
we had it off for our measurements
a little bit.
Yeah, we had it off for our measurements. Yeah. So Stefano knows more about that.
But so to recap, basically a little bit what we talked today, and please bear with me because I'm not really audio guy, so I might not use the proper terminology. But so this, let's call it reverb filter that you guys have made. From what I understand, it is a file that you're gonna give it to us. We're gonna import it into either Logic or Pro Tools or whichever software we use. And then it will basically recreate the very same effects of the sound that you will be hearing at a certain depth. But that's where I'm getting a little bit lost.
Oh, yeah, it's confusing.
When we came to your space, you were showing us on an iPad an application where I can toggle up and down and choose the depth. Where will we be doing that on our software?
That's a really good question. Where you would be doing it would be with the files. So for every speaker microphone condition, there's a different file. There's a different impulse response.
So, okay, I see. So basically we have to first decide, okay, which depth do we want to recreate the sound, and then we get the accurate file. Okay.
Exactly. And let's say if you were to want to make a continuous, somebody's singing and they're going deeper and deeper into the well, what I would do was make multiple tracks and then fade between them.
Gotcha.
From 10-foot deep to 20-foot deep to 30-foot deep. It's a really interesting potential
Now,
project.
now this applies on a pre-recording. Let's say we were gonna do this live.
Yeah, good question. As you know, I mean, you can use Ableton and bring in a mic and put reverb on that mic and send it out. So it's absolutely doable in live work. You'd have to have this kind of a plugin, this convolution reverb plugin as a plugin for whatever you're bringing the mic into and sending it back out of. And Ableton's probably the best tool. However, I don't know if Ableton has a convolution reverb. I should have looked at it because I've got it right here. And but you can use the other plugins that you saw, the Altiverb or whatever, within Ableton. So yeah, I think that to me, that was always the more important use case than production, you know. But keep in mind though that when you use that in another space, so you're going to have this reverberated signal coming through the speakers, and then it's going to react to the room in which it's in which it exists. So then you'll have like reverb on top of reverb, unless the room is super dead, and that I think is a really interesting opportunity to make a very dead. Put in some heavy velour curtains, put in some absorption in the ceiling of one of your spaces, and actually kind of do this with the synthesized reverb, so that in a live condition.
So basically recreate a room that is designated for live performance, where then you could run the reverb filter through without having to occur another reverb from a room that is now well isolated. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the other opportunity, actually, thinking this through a little bit, is like a silent disco kind of scenario where everyone's wearing headphones, wireless headphones, and then you could kind of create this effect without treating the room. If you kind of wanted to do something like that, that could be really cool and probably a lot easier.
Totally.
That led me to another question, Paul, but and obviously I'm not sure if it's doable, but could it be possible to also have a more hands-on kind of tryout, maybe later or whenever the time works, because
come out and work on it with you? Absolutely.
Yeah, that would almost be probably essential for the first, at least initial. Well, not essential. Ian could, I'm sure, figure this out because he's already got some of the software just on his laptop. But
I think I'm always. I mean, it's always a good day in the office for me when I get to go to the studio, and so I'm happy to come out. And then if the job gets more complex, we have to think about when it turns into an official project versus Paul coming out and hanging out with his friends.
No, it was more basically to do what kind of we did today, but instead of virtual, do it
live. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That would be cool. And yeah, we could do it with a mocked up just sound system and try it out in the play some instruments through it. Yeah.
And then I was also going to ask you, because I think we talked about it, but is it possible even to, create a physical like guitar pedal where instead of is that something that is actually doable? I mean, I don't know how those pedals work, but can you input the file in the pedal and then you'll have it?
Yeah.
Oh, I did a little research. Paul, you can tell me if you found anything. I really only kind of found one convolution reverb guitar pedal. It came out about 10 years ago and has been discontinued. So it looks like every once in a while it pops up on reverb.com or something like that for a couple $100. But that was kind of
model. What's the make and model of that? We can
let me.
Or whenever you send it in an email or whatnot is fine. We don't have to get it right now, but.
So basically, you have to have a reverb pedal. You can't just use any pedal. It has to be.
No, you have to have a special pedal for sure.
Yeah,
Right, something-
again, I'm like, my musician background is non-existent, so I always thought it's just random pedal and you tell them what to do, but you have to have at least the right effect inbuilt already.
Could-
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to also just throw out there, just because, or just idea time, but is it possible that ARUP could make some sort of guitar pedal that would make us I mean, obviously it would be a specific project, but make us a convolution reverb pedal of some kind, a Metabolic Studio custom well pedal?
It's a really good question. What I'll tell you, Doug, what we would do is probably put a little CPU running Ableton, or not running Max, a little Max patch. So it's a box that runs that that patch is possible, but it's probably the practical implementation of it is probably using a standard CPU for it. So that's something you could do.
Right. That sounds like once we're familiar with it, we could just build a little something like that, maybe even just run it off a Mac Mini or something for size, get the thing crammed down. I mean, maybe you guys know about teeny tiny CPUs that I don't even know about. But...
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it might be better to go to a company that kind of specializes in that. Cooper Effects has done some interesting stuff in a similar vein. They have this arcades pedal that has like different little cartridges that you input into it. I don't think you can upload your own convolution reverb into it, but that's kind of the guy who would maybe be able to do some sort of custom pedal for us.
And are they like American company or in LA, Ian, or?
I'm not. I know they're American, but I'm not sure where they're based.
Yeah. Well, could you look into this, Ian, as well?
Yeah, I can look into it.
Nice.
I've got one more question too. Just in terms of, let's say, however we are running it, whatever the ideal scenario is, what do we think about this thing running in a gallery 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Do we think that there's going to be any hiccups with a big, long, durational performance using your thing without having to restart it, without
I think it's possible. What I might consider in that situation is to still use it. Have to find use a convolution reverb plugin, but you might want to run that on QLab in that case, as opposed to maybe Ableton, because QLab is meant for kind of more installation and theater stuff. It's a little, I think it's a little more bulletproof than DAWs are generally, but I don't know if you all have an opinion about that.
I've never even heard of QLab, so this is new to me.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to show it to you. It's the de facto kind of theater sound playback thing, and I actually ran over at Oxy Arts for Carolina Caicedo, the Colombian artist. We ran a version of QLab for installation that ran for about 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it also ran the lights in that case off of a lighting board, but QLab can send DMX as well. And so I don't remember them having to reboot unless power goes out.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a possibility, but some things are just crappy, and all of a sudden the thing hiccups 20 minutes in, and that's always such a part of figuring out those long-term installations is like what's going to actually just still be working in the morning seamlessly. So QLab's great. We can look into that for sure. I can probably even ask my wife about that. She used to do theater sound for years and years and years.
Oh. yeah, totally. I didn't realize that. I'm sure. I imagine she's come across. It's been around for quite a while, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the pedal conversation, and I think we're running out of time here, but one of the things that I didn't occur to me while we were talking about this is that there are pedals that are meant to run VST plugins, and so that might be an option. I don't know if any of them will run a convolution reverb with a convolution. I don't know how that works. Whether once you load a convolution or a IR impulse response into how that runs on the pedal, but that's out there. I'm pretty sure the VST pedals are out there. The other, from a live point of view, I don't know if you've ever used MainStage. It's free with the Apple computer, and MainStage is Apple's version of effectively a stomp box kind of MIDI playback device. So keyboardists use it and run MIDI patches off of it, and guitarists use it as their foot pedals. And you can of course you can have a MIDI foot pedal that can activate different effects and that sort of thing. So MainStage can be pretty useful.
All right, cool. I can look that up too.
And
yeah,
could you
I know a friend of mine runs his keyboard rig off of it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Could you share those files with us? I mean, are there like either with WeTransfer or something? So maybe we can.
Oh yeah, actually they're not that big. I think we can probably zip them up and maybe even email them. We'll look.
Yeah.
It might.
So maybe,
but that's the next step.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Maybe we can even start playing with them, and then before you come, so we can have
yeah, totally
test on our own, and then we write down all the question of the things that we don't understand.
Right. That's a good idea.
Yeah. How have you divided an increment of 5 feet?
10 feet.
10 feet. So there are 5.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's 4 because we don't go to the bottom, right? Okay. So there's 30, 20, and 10. Oh, actually, there's 3 positions, right?
Yeah, it's the different wells have different kind of sizing and spacing between the source and receiver locations. So the 40-foot and the 30-foot well both have 4 source and receiver locations, so they're going to be, of course, slightly different spacing since they're different lengths. And then I believe the 20-foot well has 3 and the 10-foot well has 2. So you're all said and done, it's something like 31 different combinations. So you've got you're spoiled for choice.
Are we talking?
We'll send you.
Oh, sorry. I was just curious. Are you talking 31 audio files now? For each one of those spacings has a different audio file, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And then does that include the measured IRs, of which there are?
That doesn't even include the measured IRs, which there are.
So you've got like 31 modeled IRs, and then I don't know 20 some, 12 measured IRs. Yeah. So, by the way, I was just looking quickly. I just put in the chat. There is a dedicated Ableton convolution reverb as well. So again, that might be a way to go. Cool.
Nice. I'll try and plug some stuff into it and download it and get that kind of set up.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll get you the files. I think, Christopher, you and I need to maybe make sure everything is labeled consistently so that when we send them the package, they can tell the difference. And you and I can talk about that. But we'll probably get this package to you by the early Wednesday, if not earlier. So cool.
Awesome.
All right.
It's
fun stuff. I hope we can have some fun with that, and then keep thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, great.
Right.
Okay,
thanks, guys. Then
thanks you all.
And update soon.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Cheers. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
See you all now.
Thanks.
Great talking.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for everything.
Bye, guys.
All right. Later.
All right. Bye.